Hello everyone, now that we're done talking about builds for prismatic that don't use an exotic class item, we can start talking about builds that do use exotic class items, hooray. And we're gonna start with Titans because Titans don't really have that much going on. Now, I'm not gonna be doing a ton of specific build crafting in this video. This is just more of a breakdown of what class items I think you should hold on to and why. But given the class items I think you should keep, I will go over the build that you will likely use with a wide range of the class items I'm going to be talking about today. I also went over every single combination of class item anyway and did some polls with my community on Twitch to see what class items people were farming for the most in PvE to get some community data and maybe some more anecdotal data. A big thing to note is that while I will be talking about perks that have synergy with each other, that is not the end-all be-all of exotic class item farming. There are many options out there with two non-synergistic perks, but because both perks are individually good, that will make a class item viable. This is most notable with Spirit of Inmost Light and Star Eater for all classes really, as we'll discuss. Just because an item has synergy doesn't always make it good, and just because an item doesn't have synergy doesn't make it bad. So, Titans, what class items are we really looking for here? What is worth keeping? Honestly, if you are combining Inmost Light, Syntho, or Contact together in some way, or at the very least are using one of those perks, that's about 90% of the class items I'll be talking about, with Inmost Syntho and Inmost Contact being the most popular class items. Inmost gives you ability regeneration, but not the damage like the actual exotic does. You're unlikely to have permanent uptime on this, but it is a nice way to fuel some extra grenade regen because of how often you will likely be using your melee attack, regardless of what melee attack it is. A melee attack followed up with a barrier to get 2x on the buff gives a very healthy amount of grenade energy back in combination with some armor mods that restore energy, like orb mods or class item mods, arm mods, all that kind of stuff. You should have enough melee energy already to sustain your consecrations just fine as long as you're not spamming, but if you don't, Inmost Light helps fuel that as well when using your other abilities. It also works with Thunderclap. It's just that you only get one charge of Thunderclap versus 3 with Frenzied Blade. This just makes it an overall great option for Titans in their current prismatic state. The two main targets to combine this with are Syntho and Contact, and it's pretty simple to understand why. Syntho simply gives you more damage when surrounded, which is somewhat often in modern content. This is going to amp up the damage of your melee attacks, which is what a prismatic Titan does, melee attacks. Contact gives you a big AoE after a melee attack, so you can sort of think of Syntho as a more direct way to do damage to your target, while Contact takes that damage and spreads it to everything around you. Not to mention will jolt targets as well. I can see how some people might think that's a bit overkill when your average Consecrate will demolish almost anything in its path, but the higher the difficulty, the more value you are going to extract from Contact. One might be better than the other in more specific scenarios, but they're both top of their class. Earlier, I said that just because two perks have no synergy doesn't mean they aren't good together, and Inmost with Star Eater or Scars are two prime examples. Little did I know how much people really enjoy using Star Eaters on their class item until I had some more discussions with my community, and not just Titans, but all classes. I personally don't think you need Star Eaters in low to mid-tier content. I think of it as something for bosses, raids, dungeons, higher level stuff, but it buffs your super damage by a pretty healthy amount. It's never a bad thing to have. However, you can also swap to it when appropriate. You just need to make sure you collect orbs to properly juice up your super. Some people don't really want to deal with the swapping though, which I totally respect as an armor swapping hater. Inmost and Scars follows a similar path, but isn't as exciting to some people. There are players out there who really like the healing from Scars, so if that's your thing, it's available. You should be getting plenty of healing from Knockout, so I personally think it might be a bit much, but to each their own. Then we have some inmost light synergy with other perks, but are maybe not as popular, but are still worth considering. Inmost Verity, for example, gives you that same grenade recharge, but now you can make your grenade hit extra hard. You're taking out Syntho or Contact, that extra melee power, for extra grenade power. Grapple melee does work with Verity, so keep that in mind. Inmost Armamentarium just allows you to chain your abilities a little bit more if you so wish. It's kind of a mid-tier option. Alpha Lupi and Horn are towards the low end of the spectrum. Yes, they have synergy with Inmost Light, but the value from their individual perks isn't nearly as high as some of the other offerings. Once we step outside the realm of Inmost Light, your options start to dwindle. Contact and Syntho tended to be paired with Assassin for the invisibility, if that's something you find valuable. Assassin turns you invisible on finishers and powered melee final blows, so by stacking this effect with Contact or Syntho, you are far more likely to go invisible after a melee attack, but you also have the safety option of hitting a finisher on something and getting out of any potential danger. This is a nice backup for those maybe still getting a little more familiar with playing on a melee setup in more endgame pieces of content, or maybe you just really like to be able to go invisible on a Titan, whatever the reason might be. Severance, aka all powered melees and finishers cause an explosion, also had a couple of synergies, also with Contact and Syntheseps, although these were not put into the absolute upper tier of Titan class items when I did a session of community feedback. However, if you are interested in Severance, you're probably going to lean towards these two perks as well, since they offer you the most bang for your buck. We also have some outlier class items as more of a gimmick type situation. For example, Abeyant and Horn. Both of these revolve around sending out a wave attack towards an enemy, assuming you're on Drangir's Lash, which you need to be for Abeyant to actually work. This is more of a gimmick setup in PvE than anything else, maybe something to isolate champions or something like that, but it's a gimmick setup. Abeyant has a couple of things that I would also consider for something like a Grandmaster Nightfall, and that's Abeyant Alpha Lupi for some enhanced safety on barricade use, or just Armamentarium for a little extra utility. This is not something I plan on urgently venturing out to get, though, especially after running the most recent GM with Inmost Syntho and just wrecking everything in my path. However, if you're running a more gun-based setup and you just really want to get some champions on lock, extra crowd control, you play more defensively, it's certainly an option. Hoarfrost and Horn is a similar situation. Yes, there is synergy with a class item that is based on making a wall, but it's more of a gimmicky setup as of this video, rather than anything I'm taking very seriously. Facet of Ruin is going to be your friend for this setup, though, if you do pursue it, and I would like to run it like one time for fun once I get the item. Bear and Armamentarium seems like a healthy combo, where you get to move faster with Unbreakable and damage is converted into super energy. However, if you want to use 2 Unbreakable shields, you need to monitor your grenade energy, as having 2 charges means you just get to hold Unbreakable for a longer duration if you're not paying attention. The shield will not break when one of your charges runs out, it's just going to eat into the second charge. Bear and Star Eater technically have some level of synergy, but not any that I'm really looking to explore right now, with Unbreakable being a neat concept, but not really that vital to success. Eternal Warrior and Star Eater also have synergy as a swap exotic. You just need to remember to swap early enough so that you can stack orbs for your Star Eater super. That being said, this combo requires a pretty specific setup and situation to really take advantage, like a Void super to match with a Void boss damage weapon. Maybe I'm just underselling Star Eater. I don't know. This combo doesn't really do anything for me personally because I'm already running with Surge mods in the situation where I need them, and when I don't need Surge mods, I don't really care about Eternal Warrior's effect. When it comes to Ophidian setups for the PvPers out there, you got Alpha Lupi for healing, you got Arma for another grenade, and you got Scars for more heals. Nothing too out of the ordinary. Pretty much every other combination either has no synergy at all, or is just a combination that I don't really think is worth bothering with as of this video's release. Assassin Alpha Lupi, Eternal Warrior and anything else, abeyant, and almost anything else. These are combos that you can pretty much ignore unless you have something really specific in mind that you want to try. I don't think there is any point in ranking these combos individually. They would all go into a no synergy, also not really that good section of a tier list. In a community poll that I took, I asked my viewers, if you could only pick one, which class item would you take? And I gave them 8 options, mainly the items that we considered to be some of the best class items for Titans. Here are the results. Inmost Syntho was number 1, followed by Inmost Star Eater and Inmost Contact. This shouldn't really be too surprising. Inmost is one of the best perks available. Assassin Syntho was 4, Inmost Armamentarium was 5, Inmost Verity 6th, Contact Assassin 7, and Inmost Scars was 8th place. Now, these rankings don't mean that I think these are the best class items in a particular order or anything like that. It's simply some anecdotal evidence as to what people value overall. Most of, if not all of these class items are among the best on offer for Titans, and you should consider holding them if you find them. Just because I didn't put an item on this list doesn't mean I think it's a skip or auto dismantle. That being said, though, I don't think Titans need to hold on to nearly as many class items as the other classes do. And also, that being said, I do think the top 3 voted class items are some of the best things on offer. In terms of any particular builds that I think you're going to be using with the premier Titan class items, I would just review the no class item build video that I did and swap out Syntheseps or Point Contact with your exotic class item. The top class items don't change anything significantly about the setup that you're running. It's still probably going to be Knockout Consecration or Knockout Diamond Lance, Frenzied Blade, or Thunderclap if you're running with that. Probably Shackle Grenade with the same facets that I mentioned in that video, which I think were like Sacrifice, Purpose, Awakening, Dawn, and Protection if you're in champion-based content. Any slight variation of that is also totally fine, but the build plays the same way. Melee stuff, and then your class item is going to do something extra, like an extra grenade every so often, or some AoE damage, or whatever you picked. This is why I think Titans need to prioritize their class item the least. You could get away with never getting one, and your experience really wouldn't change that much. Some of you literally might not even feel a difference depending on the class item that you're running. If anything, I would almost encourage some more gimmicky stuff, because at least you'll try something a little different. Now, if you think I missed something here, feel free to drop it in the comments. If you think I oversold something, I undersold a class item combo, I'm still learning as well. Spread the knowledge. I haven't had time to play literally every single setup, so let me know. We're all learning, right? Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.